Let me ask you something that no one else will. Are your texts silently ruining your chances with a high-value man? You might be smart, beautiful, and emotionally available, but if you're sending the wrong messages, none of that will matter. Here's the hard truth most dating coaches won't tell you. High-value men don't ghost you because you're not good enough. They pull away because your communication doesn't match your worth. One wrong text, one subtle sign of insecurity. That's all it takes for a man who was interested to suddenly go cold. And what's worse, you don't even realize you're doing it. In this video, we're pulling back the curtain on the 5 silent texting mistakes that push strong, emotionally mature men away. These aren't your typical don't double text tips you see recycled all over YouTube. I'm talking about the psychological cues your messages are sending without you even knowing it. You'll finally understand why that just checking in message actually screams insecurity, how asking the wrong question kills attraction in seconds, and the subtle text that makes you look like you're trying to prove your worth instead of owning it. This is the truth no one teaches, but once you learn it, you'll never chase again. So, if you're tired of confusion, breadcrumbing, and men pulling back, stay right here. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what to stop doing and how to start texting like the high-value woman you truly are. Ready? Let's dive in. In today's world, texting isn't just a form of communication. It's the primary way most relationships are built in the early stages. It's where first impressions are made, where emotional momentum is created, and unfortunately, where attraction often dies before it even begins. You might think it's just a text, it's not that serious, but let me challenge that. Texting is where your energy is translated into words. It's where a man starts to sense who you are, how you think, how you carry yourself, how emotionally secure you are. And men, especially high-value ones, are incredibly tuned into that energy. Here's what no one tells you. High-value men don't need constant validation. They're not drawn to chaos or drama or confusion. What they want is emotional clarity. They look for women whose communication reflects self-respect and inner calm. When you send a text that feels overly reactive, uncertain, passive-aggressive, or approval-seeking, doesn't matter how beautiful or successful you are in person, your value drops in his eyes. Not because he's judging you, but because high-value men have emotional standards, not just physical ones. On the flip side, texting with confidence, softness, and clarity can build anticipation. It creates a rhythm of connection that feels light but meaningful. It shows you're not desperate for attention. You're simply offering your presence. And that's magnetic. That's rare. And yes, that's attractive. So if you've ever wondered why a man who seemed interested suddenly became distant after a few days of texting, it probably wasn't random. It was likely a subtle signal you sent through your words, something that felt just off to him, even if you meant well. Texting isn't about playing games or saying the perfect line. It's about mastering the art of emotional tone and intention. And when you do, you won't have to question where you stand because the right man will feel drawn to you, not out of curiosity, but out of deep, natural respect. This is why texting matters more than you think. It's not just communication, it's your silent reputation. And in the dating world, your silence says just as much as your words. There's one type of text that instantly shuts down attraction for a high-value man. And the worst part is most women don't even realize they're sending it. It usually comes from a place of anxiety, confusion, or a deep desire for clarity. And while it seems innocent or even necessary at the time, it almost always backfires. The text. What are we? Or its close cousins. Where is this going? Do you even like me? Why haven't you replied? Why are you being distant? Now, let's be clear. There's nothing wrong with wanting clarity or emotional transparency. You deserve to know where you stand. But timing and emotional tone are everything. When you send a message like this too early or from a place of fear rather than calm confidence, you shift the energy. Instead of allowing the relationship to naturally progress, you force the dynamic. You signal doubt. And worse, you place the emotional burden of validation onto him. And high-value men don't respond well to pressure disguised as vulnerability. Think about it. If you're asking, what are we, after just a few weeks of inconsistent connection, what you're really communicating is, I need you to define this so I can feel safe. But a high-value man doesn't want to be pushed into a commitment he's not emotionally invested in yet. He wants to choose you, not feel like he's being cornered into something. When you lead with that kind of text, it often triggers the opposite of what you want. He pulls away, becomes vague, or even disappears altogether. Not because he's a bad guy, but because the emotional tone of your message signals insecurity. The real issue here isn't the question itself, it's the energy behind it. When you send a message out of fear, it's always felt on the other end. Emotional urgency is unattractive to a man who values peace, self-assuredness, and mutual growth. A better approach is letting the relationship unfold while staying grounded in your own standards. Show up consistently, observe his actions, stay in your feminine energy, and let the connection build. If the relationship starts to feel misaligned with what you want, then you can have an honest, direct conversation, not a text fired off in a moment of panic. Remember, the most attractive women don't demand clarity, they command it by knowing who they are and what they deserve. A high-value man doesn't need to be forced into defining the relationship. He'll want to define it with you when he feels emotionally connected, inspired, and safe. So before you send that emotionally loaded text, pause, ask yourself, am I seeking clarity or am I trying to control an outcome because I'm afraid? There's a big difference. And when you master that difference, you stop chasing and start attracting everything you deserve. Neediness is one of the fastest ways to turn off a high-value man. And the tricky part, it doesn't always look like what you think. Most women hear the word needy and imagine constant texting, over-the-top clinginess, or begging for attention. But high-value men pick up on neediness in much subtler ways, through your tone, timing, and emotional state when you communicate. It's not what you say, it's why and how you say it. For example, sending a quick good morning text might seem sweet, but if you're sending it every day and feeling anxious when he doesn't reply immediately, the energy underneath that message shifts. He senses that you're not just being kind, you're reaching for reassurance. And that's where the red flags start to go up. High-value men aren't looking for someone who needs constant emotional support from the start. They're looking for a partner who's grounded in herself, who enjoys connection but doesn't require constant validation to feel okay. Neediness is essentially an emotional hunger. It's when your sense of peace depends on how someone else shows up for you. And while that might sound dramatic, it shows up in small, frequent behaviors. Double texting when he hasn't replied in an hour, panicking over his tone, reading into every delay as rejection, or apologizing for bothering him when you simply say hi. It's the mindset of, I hope I didn't do something wrong, instead of, I know my worth regardless of his response. To a high-value man, this signals one thing: you don't fully trust yourself yet. And that's a deal breaker for a man who's spent time building his own self-worth and emotional stability. He wants a woman who adds peace to his life, not someone who unconsciously seeks him to fill her emotional gaps. He's not looking to be the center of your world. He's looking for a woman who already has her own world and is inviting him into it. What's most important to understand is this: confidence is silent, while neediness is loud, even when it's hidden under politeness. High-value men can feel when your texts are a lifeline instead of a bonus. And while they may respond at first out of kindness, they'll quickly begin to pull away once they realize the pressure to constantly prove their interest. It's not that they don't want to connect, they just don't want to feel responsible for your happiness before trust has even been built. When you shift from needing his response to simply appreciating it, everything changes. He feels free, not obligated, drawn in, not pushed away. Because in the end, the most magnetic energy you can bring into any relationship is the kind that says, I desire you, but I don't need you to feel whole. And that is the difference between a text that repels and one that ignites connection. Double texting. For some, it's no big deal, just sending a second message when someone doesn't reply. But in the world of dating, especially when dealing with emotionally secure, high-value men, how and why you double text can completely shift the energy of a connection. It's not the second text that's the problem, it's the emotion behind it. Most women don't double text because they genuinely forgot to include something. They do it because they're anxious, because his lack of response is triggering a fear. Is he losing interest? Did I say something wrong? Should I remind him I exist? That emotional urgency is felt even through a screen. And for a man who values confidence and emotional calm, it instantly changes the way he sees you. When a man hasn't responded and you send a second text just minutes or hours later, especially one that's clearly seeking a reaction, you're not just communicating words. You're revealing how comfortable or uncomfortable you are with uncertainty. And here's the thing, dating is full of uncertainty. High-value men are observing not just what you say, but how you handle silence. If you can stay composed, grounded, and busy in your own life, it tells him you're not anxiously waiting around for his attention. You're in your own lane. You're secure. That's magnetic. But when you double text out of impatience, insecurity, or a need to control the outcome, the dynamic shifts. He no longer sees you as confident and self-possessed. He sees you as emotionally dependent on his response. And that pressure is heavy. It makes him feel less freedom, less desire, and less attraction. Not because you're a bad person, but because neediness, even subtle, repels healthy masculine energy. Now, this doesn't mean you can never send a second message. If it's intentional, light-hearted, or part of an ongoing fun dynamic, it's usually fine. For example, following up with something playful like, okay, but wait, I forgot to tell you the craziest thing, can feel natural and cute if the energy between you is already warm and established. But if your second message is, hey, or did you get my last text? Or are you mad at me? Now you're operating from fear, not connection. The key difference is this. Confident women don't text for reassurance. They text for connection. They don't panic when a man doesn't reply right away because they trust that they're worthy of attention without having to chase it. They have lives that are full, schedules that are busy, and self-worth that isn't dependent on someone replying on time. That energy is what attracts a high-value man because it signals emotional maturity, self-respect, and patience. And here's what most people overlook. Silence is also a message. If a man isn't responding, that tells you something. A confident woman doesn't fight against that message. She listens to it. She doesn't send a second or third message trying to spark interest where it's fading. She mirrors the energy she's receiving and adjusts accordingly. So is double texting always a relationship killer? Not necessarily, but it becomes one when it's driven by anxiety, insecurity, or fear of being forgotten. That emotional energy leaks into the connection and can quietly erode the very attraction you're trying to build. The most powerful move you can make is to pause before hitting send. Ask yourself, am I texting to connect or to calm my anxiety? If it's the latter, take a breath, close the app, and return to your own power. Because real connection never comes from chasing. It comes from being so grounded in your value that you let the right man step toward you, not away from you. Emotional control in texting is one of the most underrated yet powerful tools a woman can master in modern dating. It's the difference between reacting and responding, between pushing someone away and drawing them in. And most importantly, it's the difference between texting from a place of insecurity versus texting from a place of power. Let's be honest, when emotions are high, it's easy to type out a message impulsively. Maybe he took hours to respond and you start spiraling. Is he losing interest? Maybe you saw him online and he didn't open your message. Suddenly your mind is racing and your fingers follow. You shoot off a sarcastic text or a guilt-tripping one, or worse, a needy paragraph explaining how confused or hurt you are. But here's the hard truth. Every time you let your emotions run the conversation, you're handing over your power. High-value men don't just observe what you say. They feel how emotionally in control you are. And for them, that's everything. Why? Because emotional control communicates emotional maturity. It says, I can feel disappointed or confused, but I don't lose myself in it. I can hold my emotions without throwing them at you. Men who are emotionally grounded want a woman who is also stable. That doesn't mean you never express feelings. It means you choose how and when to do it instead of letting your emotional state dictate the flow of the conversation. And this is especially important over text, where tone is often misunderstood. A moment of emotional overreaction can read as dramatic, insecure, or even manipulative, even if that wasn't your intent. Let's break it down with a real world example. Say he cancels plans last minute. Your instinct might be to fire back, wow, really? Or this is so typical. But if you pause and regulate your emotions first, your response might shift to something calm but direct, like, thanks for letting me know. Let's touch base another time. That reply is a passive. It's composed. It shows you respect yourself and won't beg for time. But you're not exploding either. That's emotional control. Another common situation is when he starts pulling away. The emotionally reactive part of you may want to send a text like, why are you acting distant? Or did I do something wrong? But a woman with emotional control pauses. She observes. She reflects. And if she says anything at all, it's intentional. Something like, hey, I've noticed a shift in our communication. If you need space or feel differently, I respect that. That kind of message doesn't chase, it stands firm in self-worth. It also gives the man space to respond honestly without feeling cornered. The power of emotional control is that it allows you to maintain dignity even when your feelings are real and valid. It helps you avoid regrets. It keeps the energy between you and a man clean and grounded. You're not exploding, blaming, or over-explaining. You're staying centered. And in a world where so many people are reactive and emotionally scattered, that kind of presence is rare and deeply attractive. Texting will always be a part of modern dating, but what separates a high-value woman from the rest is how she manages her emotions in the moments that matter most. Because in those moments, she's not just managing communication, she's shaping perception. And when a man feels that strength behind your words, he knows he's dealing with someone different, someone emotionally intelligent, someone unforgettable. Texting a man to spark his interest isn't about playing games, being overly flirty, or pretending to be someone you're not. It's about triggering something deeper in him. Curiosity, emotional connection, and attraction. The most captivating texts are the ones that invite him into your world, make him feel something, and leave just enough space for him to want more. Most women make the mistake of trying too hard to impress. They overshare, send long paragraphs too soon, or try to force a bond by being overly available. But a high-value woman doesn't do that. She's not trying to prove her worth through words. She embodies it. Her texts reflect confidence, warmth, and intentionality. She isn't afraid to be playful, thoughtful, or even a little bold because she knows who she is and what she brings. So what kinds of messages actually spark a man's interest? One powerful way is through curiosity. Try sending a message like, remind me to tell you what happened at work today. It was wild. That kind of text creates a hook. It's light, intriguing, and invites conversation without demanding it. It gives him something to lean into, a reason to engage, and a glimpse into your life. And most importantly, it doesn't scream, look at me. It simply says, I have a story and I'd love to share it with you. Well, another technique is using thoughtful observations. Instead of the usual, how was your day? Try something more specific and personalized. For example, I saw someone wearing a shirt just like yours today and instantly thought of you. Funny how the mind works. It's subtle, emotionally intelligent, and makes him feel seen. When a man feels like you notice his unique qualities, not just surface level things, he feels valued. And when he feels valued, he wants to be around you. You can also spark interest by showing that you're engaged with life. Texts like, just got back from a spontaneous hike and my legs are screaming, or I tried that ramen place you mentioned. Hen/10 show that you're vibrant, active, and connected to your world. Men are drawn to women who live full, passionate lives. It signals that your happiness doesn't revolve around them, but they're welcome to join in your experience. And then there's humor. A playful tease, a clever remark, or even a funny meme can go a long way. Humor is disarming. It relaxes him. It builds rapport. You don't need to be a comedian. Just be real and lighthearted. For example, still waiting for you to wow me with that famous guac recipe you claim was life-changing? It's flirty, fun, and opens the door to deeper interaction. But here's the secret. It's not just what you text. It's how you make him feel through it. When your messages are rooted in calm confidence, when they reflect your personality without seeking validation, and when they hold just enough mystery to keep him intrigued, that's when real interest is sparked. That's when he starts checking his phone, hoping it's you. You don't need to overanalyze or over-engineer your text. You just need to stay in your feminine energy, receptive, expressive, and emotionally grounded. Speak with intention, lead with joy, and never chase. Because when a man senses that your attention is a gift, not a plea, he'll want to earn more of it. That's how you text to spark interest. And that's how you shift from just another conversation to someone he can't stop thinking about. Green flag texts are the kind of messages that don't just keep a man interested, they build interest. They create emotional depth, intrigue, and a genuine connection. These aren't desperate texts. They're not overly flirty or manipulative. In fact, they're often simple but intentional. And to a high-value man, they're irresistible because they speak to his deeper desire for a woman who is confident, emotionally intelligent, and authentic. The best green flag texts communicate three powerful things: emotional security, feminine warmth, and self-respect. Let's say you're texting with someone you're newly dating. Instead of sending a generic wide or waiting for him to initiate every time, imagine you send, "I just had the most peaceful walk by the water and thought of you. Felt like something you'd enjoy." That's soft. It's evocative. It creates an image in his mind. It subtly lets him know he's on your mind without demanding his time or energy. That's a green flag. Another example might be something playful, like, "You've officially ruined pizza for me. Nothing's been as good since that place we went to." This kind of message does two things. It references a shared memory, building emotional rapport. It lightly compliments him without overdoing it. These kinds of texts make him feel connected to you and appreciated, which deepens desire. Here's what green flag texts aren't. They're not sent out of fear, anxiety, or pressure. They don't sound like, "Are you mad at me?" or "I guess you're busy again." Those are emotional traps. Instead, green flag texts sound like, "Hope your day's going well. Mine's been nonstop, but in the best way. Just wanted to send a little good energy your way." It's thoughtful, low pressure, rooted in your own life, not chasing his. Men notice the difference between a woman who texts to get something and one who texts to share something. When you're emotionally full, when your life is rich and your energy is radiant, your texts feel like a breath of fresh air. They're an invitation, not a demand. They create a pull rather than a push. And yes, green flag texts also include setting boundaries with kindness. For example, "I really enjoy talking to you, but I notice we mostly text late at night. I'd love to chat when we're both more present." That's direct, respectful, and shows self-worth. A high-value man won't be turned off by this. He'll respect it. And that respect builds deeper desire than any sexy selfie ever could. At the core, green flag texts make a man feel good about himself and good about you. They remind him that you're thoughtful, grounded, and intentional. They create emotional safety while still keeping things exciting. And when used consistently, they lay the foundation for something real. Not just attention, but genuine interest and long-term attraction. Becoming irresistible via text isn't about using perfect words or learning some secret code that magically makes a man fall for you. It's about who you are behind the messages. Your energy, your emotional self-awareness, your ability to express interest without losing your self-worth. At the end of the day, high-value men aren't falling in love with your emojis or clever replies. They're drawn to the woman who sends them, and that's where your true power lies. When you shift your mindset from "how do I get him to like me" to "how can I express myself with confidence and clarity," everything changes. You stop texting for validation, you stop chasing, and instead you begin to attract, because nothing is more captivating than a woman who is calm, composed, and emotionally grounded. She doesn't text to fill a void, she texts because she has something to share, something to offer, and she values her time and presence. Being irresistible doesn't mean being unavailable or cold. It means having standards. It means knowing the difference between playful effort and desperate overextension. It means you don't over-explain, you don't over-apologize, and you don't let one delayed reply unravel your sense of self-worth. You trust your intuition, and you're not afraid of silence because you know that the right man will make space for you without confusion, games, or emotional breadcrumbs. The most attractive women over text are the ones who understand balance. They know how to show warmth without overgiving. They flirt with ease, but never with an agenda. They're direct when needed, but never aggressive. They know how to keep the tone light, the energy positive, and the communication meaningful. When a man receives a text from a woman like that, It stands out, it's rare, and in a world full of noise and neediness, rarity is magnetic. So yes, spark interest, be playful, be bold when you feel it, but always lead with self-respect. Know when to lean in and when to step back. Know when a silence is space and when it's a signal. And above all, remember this, your value is not determined by how often someone texts you back, but by how deeply you know who you are when they don't. If you want to become irresistible over text, don't chase validation. Embody the energy of a woman who doesn't need to be chosen because she already chose herself. That's the energy that makes a man look at his phone, read your words and think, wow, she's different. And in the end, that difference, that undeniable blend of confidence, kindness, mystery, and maturity is what makes you unforgettable, not just in his inbox, but in his mind, and most importantly, in his heart. Your texting strategy moving forward is all about building and maintaining the right balance. The key to mastering this is embracing the mindset of effortless attraction. Stop stressing over every word and instead focus on being intentional with your communication. You don't need to flood him with texts or overthink every message. Instead, focus on sending texts that align with your values, texts that reflect confidence, curiosity, and emotional maturity. Start by taking control of your own emotional state before you text. If you're feeling anxious or unsure, take a moment to center yourself. A grounded woman is infinitely more magnetic than one who texts from a place of need. When you feel centered, your texts will naturally reflect that sense of calm, which is exactly what high-value men find attractive. In your strategy, always remember that less is often more. Don't text just for the sake of texting. Your time and energy are valuable, and every message should have a purpose. Whether it's to share something interesting, initiate a meaningful conversation, or create a fun connection. Let your words count and never chase a response. High-value men are drawn to women who respect their own space and can allow for natural flow in the conversation. The final piece of your strategy is consistency. Be consistent in your emotional control, your ability to maintain your standards, and the energy you bring to your messages. Over time, this will build a sense of trust and attraction. Stay true to yourself and communicate with authenticity. And always remember, the right person will appreciate you for exactly who you are, and your texting will reflect that deep, genuine connection.